Well, the best thing about writing a book is that it makes you think about what you really believe in and what you're really offering. Because hopefully in the process of writing that book, you have had some amazing thoughts that are really useful to other people. So then you can strip those out and maybe write commentary like articles for an association that you want to be involved in. You might be able to write a piece for a business magazine. So the content you've developed and the thinking you've done to parlay bigger opportunities in other media forms as well.
Hello there, ladies and gents. Welcome back to the Business of Being an Author podcast show. And today we have the absolutely lovely Anna Featherstone joining us. Hello, Anna.
Hello, Andrew. How's things?
Things are great, thank you. And all the better for having the opportunity to have a chat with you. We caught up in Tasmania in Hobart a few weeks back, I think it was, and it was absolutely lovely to talk to you about all things bookish. So thank you so much for agreeing to come and have a chat with me on the show.
Absolutely.
Now, Anna, you're an author, nonfiction author. That's part of the reason why I obviously wanted to get you on the show. But you're also one of the Australian Business Book Award judges. You've been a supporter for a long time. You're big in the publishing space, helping authors, doing a whole lot of stuff. And for me, why did I want to interview you? It's your depth of knowledge in the nonfiction author space, which to me is pretty amazing, and centered around this fabulous book that Anna wrote called Look, It's Your Book. There's a great workbook that goes out with that, but this is a fabulous, fabulous book. Now, I use it. I give it to all my book writing coaching clients. They get a box, and your book features in there as an extraordinarily detailed compendium, which just shows to me your depth of knowledge of the nonfiction author space. So congratulations on the book. Maybe start off a bit by telling us, how long did it take you to write this? You know, all those usual kind of authory questions, because it's incredibly detailed. You maybe give us a bit of an overview about how this was birthed.
Yeah, well, I suppose it all started, my whole knowledge in the area. You know, I've been published since I was 21, traditionally published. And then over time, I wrote more books. And then for some of them, I couldn't find a publisher. And I was like, whoa, what do I do here? So then I kind of moved into the independent publishing space as well. And then kind of combined the two, because now most of us are hybrid authors as well. So we have traditional deals as well as going in the self-publishing route. And then that book came about because I was asked to give a workshop, which went really, really well. And then they said, can you come back and do another workshop? I was like, wow, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have to research everything so it's really up to date. I may as well write the book. So then a year, a bit later, and all that experience and talking to people, 100,000 words. And what I wanted to do is, like, we're on a podcast, and we absolutely love podcasts. They give us, you know, this hit of information and inspiration just when we need it. But the thing is, when you're doing such a complex project as a book, it's great to have something you can refer to that actually steps you through the process. And so you can see everything that you need to do, and then you can go refer back as you need it. So that's why I put it together, and I'm so glad I did.
Oh, it's a truly extraordinary book. And you're right. I think that for a lot of new authors in particular, they don't really fully appreciate the complexity of writing and publishing a book. And it is a highly complex project. I mean, you can have a book, you can write a book, you can, write 50,000 words, whatever, get it out and, just pull it together. But there's a great difference between a exceptional book that is going to help you build a business and just kind of, churning out a book, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think we see that too as judges of the Business Book Awards, that there's all sorts of books that are okay, but they don't stand out. So it's that process of getting to an exceptional book that people want to refer to other people. That's what we need to aim for, because there's plenty of books in the world. So it's about how do you make yours stand out and find its audience, and how do you make it work for you as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you work with a lot of authors at different stages, and you provide a different range of services. Feel free to tell us the kind of way that you work with authors, but also what are the biggest blind spots that you think that you encounter that people tend to have before perhaps that they even begin writing the actual book?
Well, in a way, it's kind of lucky that people are blind, or we'd never start. We need some of those blind spots.
I agree.
Because
I agree.
Writing a book, it's not easy. It wasn't meant to be easy, and AI has not actually made it easier. All AI has done is make it easier to write drivel. I think a big one is that the second or third draft, if the author is still writing for themselves rather than their audience. So that first draft, yes, and second, get it all out, get what you want to say out. But then the blind spot is not shaping it for your actual reader. So it's working out that, and you can end up with like a lot of bloat in a book. That's the author just wanting to talk things through, and it's like readers now we're being attuned to much shorter attention spans. So readers don't want to put up with your waffle that is just, for your own ego. They're reading your book to get, information or to help them solve a problem. So I suppose the blind spot's not focusing on the reader enough. And then the big one is thinking that a good book will market itself, because it won't.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk about marketing quite a bit, actually. Anna, how do you make a book commercially smart, professionally credible, I guess, and genuinely useful, once it's in the world, I guess, if you look at it from that point of view?
Well, if you wait till it's in the world, it won't be any of those things, because all that thinking has to happen back when you're actually producing the book. So it's in like the quality of your thinking that goes into the book. It's about, speaking with the right people while you're writing it. It's about setting things up early so that your book on launch day, it's not the first time people have heard about it. Like, humans are creative. So yes, definitely we can write books for ourselves. I mean, it's just like people do art. Like, not everyone needs to sell their art. You might just want to share a story with family. But it's about making that book also, like, you need to know what your goals are and your aim is for the book, because that'll help you navigate that path to get all those things down the end.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So, and I say we're going to talk about marketing, I think, in a second. I just want to ask you another question, really, about kind of your audience. I think you've written a book specifically for Australian writers, nonfiction writers. I think the information is applicable to people writing nonfiction around the world, without a doubt. But there's definitely an Australian kind of a theme. And I guess, what do Australian authors need to understand that perhaps they're going to miss if they're following advice from overseas, from America, for example, or even the UK?
Yeah, so the Australian market's really different. Now, there's a lot of Australian authors targeting foreign buyers, and that is fabulous because you can work out that system. But Australians' population, as we know, is much smaller. So there's different costs involved. Our bookstore setup is different. Our freight costs are huge in comparison to some other countries. So there's those things. Like, if you're targeting an Australian audience, advertising is expensive for the population as well. And the algorithms work differently. So if you're targeting Australian authors, that's much easier to do than trying to break through the algorithms to be seen on like US platforms and other platforms, because some of the social media companies, kind of limit that accessibility to those other markets. And also it's a much smaller market. Like, a lot of people know each other, whereas I suppose foreign market, that they're so much bigger. Yeah, so there's a fair bit to take into account. We've also got other systems. Like in Australia, we've got public lending right, we've got the copyright agency. So authors can actually make extra money by, being in those services. And the Australian library system's really unique as well. So some of those things are quite different.
Great. And again, all things that you cover really in detail in your book, of course, which is where that comes from. So I think it's good advice. It's the whole point again. If you want your book to achieve certain things for you as a commercial author, you've got to give it every opportunity to be successful. And I don't think a lot of the time people realize that it's actually a lot. You've got to write a great book. It's got to be robust. It's got to be thorough. It's got to be different. It's got to be all of those things that you highlight, that we talk about as author coaches and our own books that we're writing as well. We need to understand just how important all of that is. It is not just a matter of write anything, put it out there, and you've got instant credibility, fame, fortune, and all the rest of it. It just doesn't work that way in a world where readers are much more sophisticated. They've got much more choice. They've got we're absorbing more information on a daily basis than ever, which means you've got to do that extra hard work to make sure that your book is going to be significant, substantial, different, all of those elements. And I think that, you and I are always on the same page when we're talking about that, when we're judging the Business Book Awards as well. So, and that leads me really into, the assumption that, okay, I want to do a deeper dive on the marketing side of things. And I think that for many authors, the approach to marketing is often it's an afterthought. Oh, I've got my book. Now I need to figure out how to market it. Like, when do you start the marketing process when you're working with an author, or even for your own books, Anna?
Yeah, so really early, because it's not like fiction. We're talking nonfiction here, and even fiction authors have to start early, and there's lots of things they can do. I'm actually working on a book called Built-in Book Marketing, which is this whole idea, about how do you build marketing opportunities in well before launch. So even into the book itself. So like, for example, one of the books I wrote, Small Farm Success Australia, in that I went and interviewed 20 farmers across the country, all in different states, because I knew that would help me with publicity down the track, as well as make the book much more readable in every state, because there'd be something relevant. So it's thinking all the way back to the content you put in your book, like how might that play out for you later? So it's that kind of advanced thinking about marketing. It's also deciding on your brand. Who are you? And now, like, there is so much vanilla out there and so much corporate. I just say lean into your quirk. So you really need to know who you are. You need to know the colors that feel right for you. Like, own it. Like, really know who you are before. Like, that's become such an important part in your marketing. You need to have something to say as part of marketing. The whole too polished thing, if that is not who you are, like, if that's who you are, run with it. But if that's not who you are, don't try to be that, and vice versa. So be authentic.
Yeah, I think that's the bottom line for creating any brand now is we want authenticity. There's nothing worse. I say that if I'm working with speakers, is that if you see someone on stage and then they get off the stage and they're a completely different person, it makes you question everything about their authenticity. I think it's exactly the same with reading a book. We always have the line that your book should feel like you're sitting down and having a conversation with the author, and you want to be able to get to know them and know it's their authentic self. Writers like Brené Brown are so good at that. We see that with people. You go, there's a lovely authenticity, which is the basis of marketing, I think, as well, which is so important. Okay, so I think
just on that. Sorry, Andrew. Sometimes, like, an author will send me a draft of a manuscript, and I'll read the manuscript, and then I'll meet with them, and then they are that different personality. And the thing is, they're trying to be so professional in their book that they've kind of let their humor slide and not go in the book, or they're not talking about the interesting stuff. They are trying to just be polished and very factual and not upset anyone. Whereas when you meet them, they're laughing, they're saying funny jokes. I'm like, okay, that should be in the book. That's how you think and see the world. We need more of that, because anyone else can write that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I often use that line, make your book more Anna, make your book more Andrew, like be more you, because that's the gold, isn't it? That's the gem when you actually build the relationship with the author. I work with a lady and she was writing a book for the corporate market, and when you would talk to her, she'd be very wise and intelligent and smart about her stuff. But she'd just throw in a one-liner at the end of a line of when we're chatting, coaching. And it was just hilarious. And it really, you saw her other side. But in the book, she did the factual stuff and didn't do the one-liner. And it was exactly as you're saying. It was a really, it all felt very knowledgeable, but there was no real engagement. And the book completely changed when I got her to put in her just putting the one-liner that you would put in if you're talking to me, but her corporate sensibility felt like that was difficult, and it took a bit to actually get her to do that. But it definitely made for a much better book. Your book's got to have personality, for goodness sake. It's so essential.
Sometimes we can be too formal. Yeah, we can be too formal and too poised when we're trying to be an author.
I know. Don't try and be an author is the moral to the story. And again, that's often I think the thing that gets in the way of good writing is people trying to be an author, trying to be Ernest Hemingway. Look, unless you got 28 cats and a drinking problem, don't do it. Just be yourself. And
so I just need a few more cats.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, so tell me about marketing mistakes. I've got to kind of dive down there. So, you come across an author, they've published, let's assume that it's a great book. What are the biggest marketing mistakes that you think first-time authors tend to make? And again, looking at it through the lens of they want to use this book to really build their business, maybe, position them as that authority. Where do they go wrong?
I suppose one big one is not asking for help or asking for endorsements, and not asking that podcast host or not asking that journalist to, so it's easy to market and do things for other people, but when we have to do it for ourselves, it can feel really difficult. So it's like that mistake, instead you just kind of reframe it that you're actually helping people. So you've written this book to help people, whether it's to entertain them or give them a new direction or, share your learning. So when you reframe marketing as in I'm trying to help people, it helps you write that press release or that email to the local journalist. It helps you write to the podcaster and see what their needs are and how you can fill them. Yeah, so I'd say that is, not asking for help, not asking for those endorsements and getting those early readers to comment. And also not asking for the big interviews. If you're trying to get rich content for your book, the world's your oyster. People can say no. You can write to people and ask them, would they, can they make a comment? If they say no, that's fine. But maybe every now and then you'll get that yes, and that will improve your book, which makes it easier to market. Yeah. Also, the worst marketing thing is poor editing and a bad cover, of course.
It's hard to ask a book to do the heavy lifting if it's not at a high enough standard. And that's, something that spend a lot of time convincing new authors in particular is that if you want this book to help you build a business, like any tool, you can buy the cheap one or you can buy the good one, and the good one's always going to do a better job. You've got to really look at it, in that perspective. Like most of the time, marketing is a difficult thing for a lot of people. I mean, many years ago, I had a marketing company and I thought it was complicated back then, Anna, when we would have basically develop a marketing strategy and you're going to basically tell them to do a letterbox drop, put a sign on a road somewhere, put an ad in the newspaper, ad on TV or ad in the radio. There was literally 5 kind of mechanisms that you could utilize. Now I look at marketing and go, oh my God, it's so complex and it's so complicated. And add to that, I think a lot of people, I think you mentioned this before, might be good at marketing their business or their product, but when it comes to marketing themselves as an author, even if they're marketing their book, it becomes quite difficult and it's a harder thing for people to do. Could you suggest maybe a few ideas on where you think maybe a new author could start marketing? What kind of, where would you steer them when they come to you? They're really at the beginning of the process. What advice do you offer them?
I think one thing is to get your brand right first, because once you have your brand and you understand and you have like a great author photo and a good website, that gives you the confidence that you might need to take some of those other steps. Marketing, it's definitely, if you only have one book, don't invest in ads straight away, because you often will need a few books to be able to get a return on your investment. Now, this all depends too on, are you trying to make money from book sales, or are you making money from the consulting that will flow from your book or the other opportunities? Because in that case, there might be a totally different strategy. It's really working out what are you hoping the book can do for you, so then you work out what the investment is, then you can navigate that way. I also think don't outsource all your marketing. You might not know how to do it, but if it's all totally outsourced and you don't even check what's coming back to you from an agent, that's when people start tuning out, because people can feel it's not authentic. There's a huge fragmentation in social media, and you also don't have to be everywhere. Investing in marketing on your own website, getting your own author emailing list set up, rather than building on another platform that you don't know where that platform's going to be in the next year. Like, it might be owned by someone different. They might put their fees up. So kind of owning your own website land is good, and making sure that's in a good spot. You could just start telling people you're writing a book, because you never know where that conversation leads. And I'm even still sometimes nervous about saying, oh, I'm an author, when people ask. But when you say you're doing that, you have all sorts of amazing conversations and meet great people.
Yeah, I agree completely. And it is about that. I talk a lot about you've got to have that mindset of embracing the fact that you're an author, not apologizing about it, or not ignoring it. I still see a lot of authors that maybe come to me or that want some advice, and I check out their website. I can't even find that they've got a book. You've got to go 20 pages in before you find it, and you go, well, that's kind of some of the basics that we talk about. You talk about the brand, and people can go, oh yeah, brand. We all hear about brand. But it's really critically important for an author, having great photos, having great information, having testimonials. I call that personally like the business imperative, which is treating your book writing and your author world like it's a business, not like it's something on the side. You got to really embrace it, and that getting all of that initial stuff done is, to me, critically important. And I think that in this instance, most of the authors that are listening to us here, it is definitely about, I want to use my book to sell me as a speaker, to position me as an authority, to sell advisory work, those kind of, bigger picture ones. And I think what you're saying there is right. It's a little bit different if you've got one book. You can still market the heck out of that, because it's about really positioning you as that authority. So maybe you could dive a little bit deeper on that for us, Anna.
Yeah. Well, the best thing about writing a book is that it makes you think about what you really believe in and what you're really offering. Because hopefully in the process of writing that book, you have had some amazing thoughts that are really useful to other people. So then you can strip those out and maybe write commentary, like articles for an association that you want to be involved in. You might be able to write a piece for a business magazine. So use these other kinds of so the content you've developed and the thinking you've done to parlay bigger opportunities in other media forms as well. Collaboration is massive. You don't have to just do everything on your own. So are there a group of people in your business space that you can come together to offer a workshop together? So it's also not always you just having to market yourself. You're like, well, how can I benefit other people as well, and how might I benefit? So, and how do your readers and potential customers benefit? So collaborating rather than trying to, do everything in isolation is another really great strategic way to approach, marketing and, this is a long-term thing. So things I put in play 5 years ago are now playing out. So it's not being too despondent if that week of launch, that second week, you don't sell a book. You need to stay relevant though. So it's, if your topic comes up in the media, even a year after your book's out, jump on that topic, try and become a part of that conversation so you stay relevant and so your book stays relevant.
Yeah, I agree completely. I love that. Another thing you do a lot of work with your authors is around PR, getting media and helping people be, I guess, media worthy, media ready, understanding that. And I think that's another area in the marketing suite of things that a lot of authors are fearful of. They perhaps, who am I to reach out to Sunrise? The media is this mystical kind of beast. For me, I've been working in media for many, many years, and I know the most important thing is the media needs authors. They need these credible kind of people. So what advice would you offer then to our kind of nonfiction authors about utilizing the media as an opportunity and perhaps how to go about it, in the shortest possible, distance, I guess?
So I try and teach the authors I work with, I try and teach them how to fish. So basically, I teach them how they can do it so they can then go and do it. But you can also employ, media relations consultants who can do it for you for a fee. So there's that option too. But in the end, by doing it yourself, you create that one-on-one relationship with those journalists and those producers so that when your next book comes out or another hot topic comes up, you can give them a call and be available. So you can be listed on sites that media look for spokespeople in certain topics on. You can just reach out with different ideas to producers easily by email. Media releases have gone the way of the dodo. No one wants to read a media release, and it means it goes to everyone. So there's nothing special there. What's better is just a nice short email, or, for local media, just write the story yourself, provide them with a picture and send it to them, because newsrooms are decimated currently. They don't have people available to write all these stories. So if you can provide some local news, that's the start. And what often happens is you get that kind of publicity, then maybe ABC Radio locally sees that story too. So then you're able to call them and say, oh, would you be interested in chatting about X and X? A great thing is, work with libraries. Like, does your business offer something that a small business might need? Do a regional library tour, because then the libraries also then do marketing of your book and your talk, which goes in media as well. So there's all these different paths you can take. And it's basically about the thinking. How can you help that media serve their audience? What does the audience want to know, and what can you provide?
Great. And a couple of things I would not add in there, just really reinforce with you that exact point. You're right that newsrooms haven't got time. The journos, if they've got journos now, that whole industry has really been decimated. It's such a good point. But the amount of material that they need, the amount of, the amount of content that they need, the people that they need, that hasn't changed. But the workforce and the resources have. So you got to kind of look at it and be, how can I be easy? If you send a one line, say, here's my website, go and check it out, check out my book, do this, do all the hard work. That's easy for a journo to just go delete. As opposed to being able to say, hey, this is who I am. This is my credibility piece, but I can do a great interview around this. Here's 3 or 4 key bullet points. This is good for that audience. And I notice that you're talking a lot about that now. The producer of Sunrise is looking for stuff like that. The producer of the Today Show are looking for stuff like that. And all you've got to do is do a bit of homework and go, okay, you can find out email addresses for if you've got a story idea for Sunrise or Today Show or the Financial Review or the Daily, whatever.
And you just need to make it relevant.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And do your homework. Now, and podcasts are another one. Now, I've started this podcast show recently. I did another one, a couple of hundred episodes of another one a few years back, and it was quite different. But what I've noticed with this one is the number of people that reach out to me already and go, oh, I'd be perfect for your show. And you kind of go, what they're doing, they're outsourcing, getting someone to troll through to look for podcasts that they could be a guest on. And they've got a book, but they've missed the point entirely of what this podcast is about. It is not about promoting books or talking about how did you develop your book. It's about helping people build a business as an author. And I've probably had 100 people reach out to me already that are completely wrong for the show. And you go, that's exactly how you don't get media. Whereas if I got someone email me, anyone out there who's got a book, who's got a really detailed outline on how they use their book to grow their business, here are the bullet points, here's you make it easy. You make it easy for me to say yes, rather than make it easy for me to say no. And that's that core message.
Yeah. It's junk mail, and it reflects on you as the author if that's what you're doing or allowing to be done around your book. Interesting though, like talking about media, back in the day, a piece on TV might, sell a whole lot of copies, and so might have a story in a newspaper. Less and less so now. So like with some of like the big magazines and big newspapers, if people have read 2 pages, they feel like they've read the story. So they might not be likely to buy the book, whereas they may be more likely to buy the book if they hear a podcast or a short radio interview. So it's interesting how, things that like change.
Great point. All right, Anna, thank you so much. I got to say, I know there's a lot more that we could talk about, and at some stage I'm going to hit you up to come on again, because I think what you offer today is a broad overview. And look, I'm going to say, folks, if you're an author and you want to build a business around your book, you've got to buy Anna's book. It is easily one of the best investments you will make. And as I say, I give it to every single one of my book writing clients because I say, okay, any question you've got, the answer is in here. It is an extraordinarily detailed, practical book that at some parts of it, you might go, oh, that's too far down the line for me, but you'll work your way through it from the writing to the, that's how it's structured. It's hugely, hugely valuable. And I would just add, I think an important part of being, anyone can write one book, but if you want to write multiple books, you've got to invest in yourself as an author. You've got to learn more. Anna, I know that you do that, and you've written, a pile of books, but you're going to writers' festivals. You're learning. You're teaching. You're talking the talk. You're walking the walk as well. So that's why I think it's so really valuable for me. And I noticed that when we caught up recently, just how many conversations we could have around the author space in particular that is it rapidly changing. Is there any last advice that you would want to offer to someone at this stage?
Oh, just get going, people. Like get writing, get the thinking done, because not only will it help clear your mind for other adventures down the track, because you'll get all those thoughts down on paper. You just don't know where it's going to lead, and you can help so many people along the way. It's an adventure. It's just another way to enrich your life and the lives of others. So get into it. Get writing.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, folks. AnnaFeatherstone.com. The link will be here somewhere as well. Check out Anna, connect with Anna. And again, you'll hear more from her, but she's definitely a great authority for any nonfiction writer who's looking for wisdom, advice, and inspiration, to be really honest as well. And I think you need to get that book written about marketing for authors. Like I'd like that done now. Thank you. If you just go away and finish that, stop this traveling around and having a good time, and get onto your book.
Yeah, I know.
You need a book accountability buddy here, Anna.
I do. Ooh, oh well, I've got 2 on the go, but I'm also working with so many great authors at the moment. I'm like in their books, and that's so enjoyable as well.
Oh,
anyway,
I know.
I'll get there.
I completely understand, and I'm torn between the two worlds as well, where all I want to do is be writing my own books, but, you got a whole 20 or 30 other authors that you're working with at the same time, and sometimes your brain, like, you're giving advice and going, well, that's good advice. I must use that in my own book, and it's like, I get pulled between the two worlds. That's and what a wonderful position that is for us to be
so
in.
Lucky.
I think.
Lucky.
Thank you so much, Anna. We really appreciate you, and thanks also for being such an integral part of the Australian Business Book Awards, the ABBAs. You are valued and appreciated, and you're delightful all at the same time. So thank you very much, Anna.
Ditto. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you very much for sticking around, and I hope you got great value out of this episode of the Business of Being an Author podcast. Now, I'd also like to say that, of course, there is a book out called The Business of Being an Author, and it's all about the things that we're covering on the podcast, and I think it's perfect for any of you who are aspiring authors ready to really leverage that book. If you'd like to know more about that, you can visit www.andrewgriffiths.com or www.theauthoracademy.com.au. We'll put contact details in the show notes, and I really look forward to your company on the next episode. If you've got an idea for an author that you'd like me to interview, reach out, drop us a line. Righto, folks. Thank you.